Hey, Dr. Gabriel, how you doing?
Hi, I'm well. How are you?
Hey, I'm doing well, and hope everybody else is having a great Sunday. So, welcome back to a live with Noelle and Carlos. It's been a while, but I think you've been kind of out there, helping to save the world through the middle of the pandemic.
Yes, job, school board, parenting. It's a lot of time commitment, but I'm glad to be back with you this evening to do another one of our very informative live with Carlos and Noel.
Yeah, definitely. We've got a lot of information we're going to cover today. Everything from talking about the budget that we just passed in June. We passed some kind of very important amendments to that. And then we're going to talk about the return to school. There's a lot of information packed in that. And just to really highlight individuals, we're not recapping meetings or anything like that, but we're sharing information that we feel that is very important to the community. And we hope you take some little nuggets from it and take action on things that you need to take action on. We're also going to talk about educational planning. And in layman's terms, we're going to talk about new school construction, renovation, things like that. In particular, we heard information about Maury High School, go Commodores, and as well as one that I'm going to hold that I'm really excited about that's out there. And then we're just going to kind of share some final thoughts. We're going to get into, I guess we can say almost a rhythm of doing these and sharing information to everybody. But as we're getting ready, I mean, we're like less than 30 days away from the start of school. Can you believe it?
Mhm.
It's a lot going on.
Yeah.
So let's get right into this. We're using a little new technology today, so bear with us. Hopefully everything is going well on that for us. So here we go. Yeah, there we go.
Mhm.
So we got a lot of information about the return to in-person learning. And that kind of shared a lot of different things. And so we're going to go over some of those things here. Hopefully that's working the way it's supposed to. Great. So Dr. Gabriel, I mean, you're a pediatrician, you're dealing with that. I mean, we're hearing so many different things out there right now. These new variants, we're getting ready for back to school. It's not like it was 2 years ago, but I mean, there's some things that we're doing here at the division level to ensure mitigation and so forth. But would you like to kind of address or add anything from your perspective?
Sure. As a part of Dr. Birdsong's plan to reopen schools for this fall, they, of course, take the safety of all of the students and staff very seriously. And as a part of that, Carlos, you and I, we were able to tour one of the big plants that we have, which showed how they have secured again PPE. So personal protective equipment, anywhere from masks and then sanitizing equipment. So, your wipes, disposable items, signage. And once the children do come back into school, we are going to again practice very safe protocols. So, there's no mask mandate in process as far as kids coming to school having to wear a mask. But if you do test positive for COVID, and you are unvaccinated, there is a protocol that your pediatrician or your healthcare provider will discuss with you about how long you should be out of school. And when you do return to school, how many days of masking you should wear. And typically, if you're completely unvaccinated, it is you should be wearing a mask after you are symptom free for about 5 more days. And that's kind of been the general consensus. But again, discuss that with your pediatrician because on our end, there are new things that come out, protocols. And so we try to stay up to date as much as possible. Obviously, if your child is sick and not feeling well, please do not send them to school. We do have nurses in every one of our buildings, and they will certainly recognize if a child is not feeling well, take their temperature, do some screening questions, and then call a parent if needed. But for the most part, we're ready. We're excited to welcome staff and students back into the building, and we feel very confident that we can do this safely. And should there be outbreaks that occur, whether it's for COVID, for flu, or any of the other viruses or bacteria that kids commonly will have, our division is prepared to do so in a very efficient and safe manner. So I see that you have the slide up here for vaccinations. The most important thing that has come up since you and I last had our conversation, which was way before the summer, was the authorization for children between 6 months to 4 years of age to receive their vaccinations. And right now there's two different types. There's the Moderna and there's the Pfizer. And if you are older than 4, you have had the opportunity for quite some time now to receive your vaccine. And as pediatricians, we do recommend a booster. And so what that means is you get your primary series, which means your first 2 doses of either your Moderna or your Pfizer. And then after that, then you can get a booster dose. And I'll just have to go back and say that most children did receive the Pfizer because that is the only one that was authorized by the FDA. So, do I recommend getting a booster? I do. I have a conversation with my patients and we discuss based on their individual situations. But I can tell you that if your child is coming to school, they are going to be, exposed to other children who are bringing things from their households, and a booster is not a bad idea. What the vaccines, and I'll stress this a little bit, the vaccines are very helpful with not preventing the disease from actually happening. So you will still get COVID, you could still get, flu, if we're talking flu vaccine, but your severity of disease is much less decreased, and you are a little bit more protected against the different variants, which you had mentioned the word variants in your opening, Carlos, and that's very important because we know that since we're following COVID um, so much now, we're tracking how it mutates. The vaccine is what really helps to protect us against all of those different mutations and variants.
So we know that we have a lot of students who are getting prepared to come back. We have some new students who are coming in, and you typically have those immunizations, vaccinations, and I know that the Virginia Department of Health here in Norfolk Health Department is setting up to do vaccination clinics, and parents and guardians can sign up for that. They can make appointments. I know that they have one that's coming up this week. They had one last week as well, but if you're pre-K or kindergarten, 7th grade, 12th grade, it's not just the vaccinations and immunizations, but also I think students also are required to get physicals too, right?
That's correct. Well, every year, your child should have a physical, and that's just to look at things like their blood pressure, checking their weight, going over questions to make sure that they're developing healthy, both from a physical standpoint and a mental health standpoint. But the immunizations are very critical for school. Typically, when students are entering the 6th grade, we're making sure that they're up to date with their Tdap boosters. We'll usually start their meningitis vaccination series at that time. Some families will opt to get the HPV vaccine, and so there's lots of different vaccinations that come at different times based upon the child's age. And you need to have an up to date physical for just entering school, period, if you're entering in kindergarten. And then as far as the vaccinations goes, there are certain shots that are required at certain times, depending on how old your student is.
Great.
And the appointments are they're very hard to come by right now. So if you can do your vaccines through the health department, wonderful. If not, please call your pediatrician, your family medicine doctor, whoever your healthcare provider is, and try to get an appointment soon to make sure that those things are all up to date for your child.
It's very good information. Very good information. So take advantage of that. Um, So one of the other things I know a lot of parents, I literally have been out attending some events, and I've gotten that thing. A couple questions about transportation, buses, and we had that robocall and everything else that was going on at the end of the last school year. But I know that our we have a new transportation director. We actually, yourself and I, Dr. Abel, we took a tour of transportation, got to see what's working over there. And one of the things that they shared and was actually shared with us at a school board meeting is a realignment. They're working to figure out how to better align our buses closer to the schools that they're supporting, so that if we do have a situation and another bus has to go around and loop and pick someone up, they're not coming from halfway across the city to try to get to those students. So this is just an example of how they're creating these new clusters to be able to support that. So what did you think about the visit to transportation?
I was completely amazed. I mean, when you think about our school division, we have 40 to 45 different schools or educational centers. We are trying to coordinate transportation for almost 30,000 students, including pre-K 3 and 4 year olds. Layer on top of that students who are attending their zone school, and then students who are attending choice schools. You have to coordinate all of that, and just the sheer volume of coordination that takes place in order to get the students picked up at the right time based upon the school that they are attending is a monumental feat. And our new transportation director has really come in and tried to listen to the issues that we have had in the past. All school divisions right now are experiencing a shortage of bus drivers. And so we know that's a huge issue.
Mhm.
But again, the other thing is we want to decrease the amount of time that students are on the bus. And we also want to make the ride as pleasant and as safe as possible. And so last year they came out with a
Here comes my
single
bus app.
the yes, yeah,
Yeah.
Where's My Bus app, the GPS tracking tool, and now they're gonna be piloting, a program with just, I believe it's 1 or 2 schools where students will have a card, and they can swipe a card, and, the parent will be able to know exactly where that child is in real time, on that bus. Again, it's for safety, it's so that parents can know where students are, and things happen, sometimes there could be an accident on the road, or let's say a child was after school and they got on the wrong bus. They'll be able to know, uh-oh, they're on the wrong bus. What do we need to do in order to correct that? But the transportation department, they are a dedicated group of employees that are pouring their heart into soul into making sure that the children, from the time they leave the doorstep of their guardian to the time that they come back home, that they are in safe hands. They really try to do their best to make things as less complicated as possible, and I was very impressed with their work over there.
Definitely. And I think it's going to be a great pilot to be able to check that out and to see how what that renders for us and yields at the end of this school year with the two pilots. Also, we've got a question here about the staggered. We're going to continue. We had our pre-pandemic, we had 4 staggers, and then we have our continued changes as of March of 2021 of what those staggers are going to look. And I see that Kelly Miller is in the chat, and she has asked a question. I'm going to add that down there. So prior to the pandemic, there was a push to change start times so that elementary schools started earlier. And I'll take it then high schools. What is the status of that? That is still on our list for discussion. I know that as of, I guess, during the retreat in July, that was brought up as well. Now that I'm of course now serving as new chair, and Dr. Gabriel serving as vice chair, we're really working hard now with the new strategic plan and getting the monitoring schedule, getting everything in alignment so that we can be much more intentional about the amount of workload and things that we're putting on the agendas. And also so that we can have timing, so that we know when those things are coming up. But there definitely will be a discussion to revisit that. One of the biggest things when anytime that we make a decision on something, and that's really where we're at, is making sure that if we make a decision, that there are some implications that come after that. And so making sure that we're intentional about that. What are the financial implications by that? What's the ripple effect? And so we're going to be looking at that again. We're definitely going to be bringing that back up and to look at the earlier start times and to see what that does. We know all the medical science information about that, but now we're trying to look at the practical application of that and making sure that it's going to be something good for Norfolk Public Schools and our students.
Right. And that was the feedback that we received when we first went into the discussion prior to the pandemic. It was there was a lot of concern about childcare. There was a lot of concern about
Mhm.
what would the availability be for before and after care. And I
Yeah,
think that those things are things that we can definitely tackle because the conversation definitely can be brought back for, of course, full board discussion. We just have to do it in alignment with the superintendent and with our strategic plan. And let's just add on to that the discussion that we have had previously, and hopefully we'll continue to have ongoing about a pre-Labor Day start time for school.
yeah,
So there's lots of very good discussions to be had that will hopefully translate into benefits for student outcomes, which is where we want to drive all of our discussions towards.
yes. And you will hear a lot more of that being a student focused governance team. And
Correct.
all our decisions are driven to that. And to that point, we're so excited to announce this. I know that a memo went out and some announcements went out on social. But if you missed it, Norfolk Public Schools is back offering 100% of every student. It does not matter where they're coming from, their free reduced lunch. It does not matter. 100% of our students will now be able to have free meals. So there's no more balances or any of that stuff like that, because we know that a child who is hungry is not prepared to come to school and learn. And that then becomes and poses a barrier to that student's ability to be able to learn. And so I'm so glad that the folks within our administration took the steps to apply and make sure that we're able to get the grant funding for this so that we can be able to offer this again.
Mhm. Yeah, this is a huge deal. I mean, this our staff recognize that this is a barrier to students succeeding in the classroom, and they went out, they applied for the grant so that every child, no matter what their background is, what their economic background is, that they would be able to just go through that line, no ID. They just go through. They just have to make sure they have certain items on their tray. So every child should have a fruit or a vegetable on their tray, which is great, and they'll be able to get a quality meal. And it was so fascinating when we toured the nutrition
Oh, wow. Yeah,
facility. They had hydroponic gardens. They were chopping fresh fruits and vegetables. They were really being cognizant of how much how important it is for the students to have well balanced and nutritional items on their tray, so to speak, so that way that they're getting the best possible items during the day.
definitely. The only disappointment I had is I didn't get a chance to use the little chainsaw they said they had that they harvest the stuff with.
Yeah.
But the other thing that we did notice, Noel, when we were at the child nutrition the central kitchen, is that we had our students working, particularly our
Mhm.
students who are special needs, giving them real work applications, and it was just so neat to go in and just warm my heart to be able to see their smiles.
Yes.
To be able to learn, but then also to feel like knowing that you're helping everybody else
Mhm.
at your school and throughout the entire school division. Those students, they were excited to be there.
Yeah, what a concept that they can come to this facility. They
Mhm.
can be supervised, they can learn skills, they get to have lunch with the other staff members, which the staff said that it really brightens their day in
Yeah,
particular because they're with the students, and then they actually have employable skills for when they graduate. So their disabilities are not getting in the way of them seeking gainable employment, which is what they want, which is what their families want. And again, they're in a safe environment. And I just think that it speaks to Norfolk Public Schools trying to do everything that it can for every student that we have in our building.
definitely. So this one's back up here. All right. So as we're talking about back to school, shameless plug here. Community Connect is coming back. I'm so excited. It's a labor of love here. But it's the second year, our second annual, and it's our back to school Community Connect. And that's going to take place on Saturday, this coming Saturday, August the 27th at Norview Middle School. This was an idea that I had during the pandemic. I work in human services, and I really wanted to be able to have an opportunity to provide resources and support. Everybody knows I'm a part of Alpha Phi Alpha Fraternity Incorporated, and my Alpha brothers, we're really committed to service and bettering the entire community. So just bringing all these different forces together. And we're so excited to be partnering with Principal Smedley at Norbury Middle School and the entire community there. But the biggest thing that's going to happen is that we've got backpack giveaway. And I would be remiss on this Saturday. There's about 8 different community events throughout the city. There is no reason why any child should go back to school in the fall and not have the resources that they need. And so, one of the things that I'm going to list, not only my community connect on my social media, but I'm also promoting the other events that are going, because maybe you can't get to Norview, but you can go to the event that's happening at Booker T. Washington, or the one that's happening at Butte Street, or the one that's at Lakewood Elementary Park, Lakewood Park. There's so many different things out there. But Community Connect is coming. It'll be from 10 until 2 o'clock. And there's games and prizes and stuff for the kids to do and stuff for even your parents. If you're even looking for a job, we've got VDOT and Hampton Roads Connecting Partners, which is the company that's building the bridge tunnel, and so many others, City of Norfolk, HR. The list goes on. There's about over 30 different vendors that'll be there, and it's totally free. So we look forward to having you all come out for really, really a great time. And you were there last year too, Noel. Did you have fun?
Oh, we had a great time. I brought a couple of my children with me, and they loved looking at the supplies. They loved the different um, vendors that you had. I remember the police department came with their popsicle truck, and it was a lot of fun. And there were so many families that were very grateful for the resources that your community and your Alpha Brothers were providing to them. I mean, the kids were just so excited to get their backpacks because the first thing they did was empty it out and crayons and paper and glue sticks. And teachers are very happy when kids come to school prepared and they're ready to learn. They're excited about that.
Definitely. And one of the things we're looking at, we know that backpacks are, making sure that students have that supplies, but there's really this, I've been hearing a lot in the community of really targeting to support teachers and creating supply closets. And so a lot of organizations like, all right, great, we do this at the beginning of the year, but what about the middle of the year? And what about all year long, making sure that students have the necessary resources? So there'll be some more information about that and how we can work. I was putting that bug into Miss Brown, Eunice Brown's ear. She's our community engagement person with Norfolk Public Schools, as to how we can do that. So as we're kind of transitioning in here, I wanted to pop up this presentation, but it's so much. We're going to talk about educational planning and Maury High School. Now, everybody knows I'm a Commodore, and that's no reason why we got this orange background, but with the blue there. But we got a presentation on the 3rd of August regarding, I think really it's a long-awaited presentation about Maury High School. So even though I don't want to be biased on it, so I'm going to let you talk about it a little bit, Dr. Gabriel.
Sure. And I have to say, I'm going to repeat a little bit of what I did mention when we did have our meeting. And that is to say that the only way that we are able to fund capital improvements with Norfolk Public Schools is through the local dollars. And so our local council members, our Mayor Alexander, and all of the city council members, they have earmarked millions of dollars in order for us to be able to build not only a brand new Maury High School, but we're also looking at building a brand new Norview Elementary,
Yep.
Jay Cox Elementary, and Granby Elementary. So if you think about it, a high school alone right now, the price tag is between 130 and 150 million dollars, and an elementary school is about 26 million dollars. And so that's a lot of funding that is coming our way from the city to invest in what they believe is the most important investment that they could possibly make long term, the education of all of their scholars. Because one day these scholars are going to be in our seats doing what we're doing building, and we want to make sure that our buildings are, as Dr. Birdsong says, worthy of them. And so we are very excited to discuss Maury High School and what the architects and the planning leaders did prior to the pandemic was they went out and they got feedback from multiple different stakeholders to discuss what they envisioned for a new Maury High School. What were some of their dreams? What were some of the things that the students wanted? And everybody was wonderful with giving their feedback. We talked about an environmentally sound building. We talked about expanding the medical sciences program that they have there, the wonderful partnership that we have with Eastern Virginia Medical School. They talked about making the building bright and having as much natural light as possible, having many different options for open spaces for collaboration, having the ability to use technology, and then of course the athletic portion of it, um, basketball courts, track and field, tennis courts, all of those things. And so it was wonderful to hear them come back and present to us that they have four different options in place right now that they will be kind of packaging together and getting ready to do a community launch to discuss those four different options. And so two options are going to be to completely replace Maury High School, and they'll talk about the two different building schematics that they have come up with, the building size, 6 floors versus 4 floors,
Mhm.
what the layout looks like. And then there are two options that talk about renovating the current Maury High School. Even though I did not go to Maury, I went to Granby, I can certainly appreciate the beauty that that building has, and the architectural statement and relevance that it has to the city of Norfolk. I mean, it is a beautiful building. And so I believe that there is sentiment to try to capture that historical beauty that it has. But at the same time, we've got to modernize that building. I mean, you can't get Wi-Fi connection there. I mean,
Yeah.
Mr. Clan, you and I, we've toured more almost every year. The things that we see in that building, the conditions that our students are in right
Well,
now are
remember
just,
you sticking your hand in that. I mean,
yes.
yeah, as an alum, I'm very partial to my alma mater. I mean, the building is historic. I mean, there's a lot of memories and things that are there. But at the end of the day, we've got to make sure that we provide a learning environment that is worthy of our students. And
Mhm,
I think Dr. Birdsong has said that many times. And so whether or not we're renovating or we're building new construction, the biggest part of that is we're going to have some community conversations coming up. And so I know that the administration is going to come back to us at our 14th meetings,
mhm,
September 14th, and give us a timeline and schedule. And so we'll really be looking for the community to take part in that, to provide feedback. We have learned from lesson learned from the past, and to make sure that we walk and have the community walk along with us as we go through these particular proposals and changes, and that we have the voice of the community. And so I just want to also point out that in the chat, if you're watching this now, or even if you're watching it later, I did put the link directly in from the presentation that was given to us. And you can get that from Board Docs. And you can actually see the whole feasibility study and the schematic and all the different options there as well.
mhm. Yeah,
Yeah,
this is very exciting for the school division. And I see that we have a question in there from a
yeah, I'm about to
speaker.
pull it up right
Yes.
now.
And
Yeah.
we don't have a timeline yet for the 3 elementary school rebuilds, but built within the presentation, um, I'm trying to think if
There's
it's
a
in this one or,
timeline for what each phase of what
yeah,
happened.
for
Mhm.
the phases for at least Maury. And I think that as we further discuss, how and who may be doing the builds for the elementary schools, we'll be able to give a little bit more concrete information on that. But the
But I
timeline
think
that
you
we
can
have,
point but I think you can point out that all of those projects that you mentioned will be done, before the end of the decade. It's a
oh
10-year plan.
yes, oh
Yeah,
certainly, certainly. Hmm.
yeah. So, one of the other things that I was kind of holding back there, because as a part of the educational planning, and Dr. Gabriel, because I've pulled your ear many a times talking about Booker T. Washington High School, and what essentially the community, when I was even just coming on to the board. A lot of those individuals, I mean, I remember sitting who would come and speak and about their concerns about Booker T. Washington High School. And the thing is that we want to make sure that all of our schools have strong academic programs, and that we have, again, a building that's worthy for our students to be there. And so I'm really excited to announce that there is a new site that's up on the website at Norfolk Public Schools. That is Booker T. Washington High School Vision for the Future. In 2019, I put forth a resolution to the school board, really outlining these things after having community conversation. And I appreciate your support because I think, Dr. Gabriel, you seconded my motion there for that resolution, which was to start and to set aside the funding for a phase one feasibility plan for Booker T. Washington High School and its academy there. And so, what I'm also dropping in the comment section for everyone is that site that you can go to. It is the Booker T. Washington High School Vision for the Future. And starting in September, we will begin having community stakeholder conversations. And so I know the team, we have HBA Architects and Delcino Miles, the Miles Agency, that are working together to be able to capture this. And they are scheduled to come back somewhere maybe January, February of 2023. So once we come out of the new year, to come back with their recommendations on what that academy should look like. But I'd be remiss if I didn't highlight some of the other things. I mean, we have a full capital improvement plan for Norfolk Public Schools, and we are so grateful to our Chief Operations Officer, Rick Fraley, who was one of our principals for a number of years, who brings a wealth of experience and knowledge to this. But several of our buildings throughout schools throughout the school division are receiving new roofs. They're getting new windows. They're getting new doors. In particular, Booker T. Washington High School is getting a new roof. They're getting a new HVAC system. They're getting a new electrical upgrade. And the city council had also made note about designating some funds, which we will need to be able to enact some of the things that come out of the feasibility study. I just want to highlight the fact that, things take time, but if we're consistent and we're trying to be transparent, and this is why we're here talking, and we talk about these things even in the meetings. We need the community. We need to engage with the community. We're trusted partners with the community to really give you the information. And so I hope those particular individuals who love the mighty Booker T. Washington High School will now be able to see and we'll go and view this site and the history, what the next steps are, looking at the timeline. These things are all important, not just for Booker T, but all of our schools to really be partners.
Mhm. You've done a great job with really leading the charge and being the voice of that community, Mr. Clinton. So I have to give you kudos for that because you have done your homework, so to speak, on listening to the community, visiting the school, and then even doing some small groups with some of the voices within the Booker T. Washington community. And so all of this again comes together because of the work and listening and again taking it back to what do the students need in order to be successful.
Definitely, I appreciate that, and Yvonne Wagner and Mr. Ashley Avery and Cynthia Watson and so many who have been retired teachers, community members, parents who have been a part of this conversation. So I'm really, really, really so excited to be going in the next school year and seeing this and so many other things that are happening in our division. Just kind of pivoting in there. We've been through this pandemic. We're still coming out of it. We're just kind of like now learning how to live with things here. But there's so many glows within the division, and one of the things that we had in our discussion, I think it was maybe on August 3rd about academics, was really highlighting the fact that we were moving in the right direction. We may not be there on the target, but we're moving in the right direction. This pandemic, we know that there's been a lot of learning loss for students who didn't thrive being virtual. But we had to make a decision. And we decided to err on the side of putting the health and safety and well-being of individuals, knowing that there was a potential that individuals would fall behind. But if we put the resources where they need to be, if we talk about equity and excellence, and we make sure that we have strong teachers in the classroom to support our students, we're seeing just that. And so I know, Noelle, we've known each other for years, that we commend all of our educators, our teachers, I mean, the cafeteria worker, bus driver, everybody, because it takes truly a team to put this effort in there. And though we have not reached the summit, but we are on our way in the right trajectory. And I know that with the new strategic plan, the new continue the drive with our administration, and we've been going through some conversations over that. And if you've been paying attention to our board meetings, we've been having some conversations, massaging, kind of putting some things in there. But we're on target. We're on target for September to approve that, and so that our division, our teachers, our community will see what we're measuring and what we're elevating to say that this is important. And if we do these things, we know that the outcome is that students will be successful and students benefit from it.
Absolutely. And I'll just echo your sentiments of how much we care about our educators in the classroom, our teachers' assistants, because in the many school visits that we do, it just gives uh, meaning to the presentations that we receive in the boardroom. And we have the ability to speak one on one with teachers. We have the ability to see all of the effort that they are doing, both during the school day and outside of the school day, because we know that many teachers take work home in order to do the best that they can for the students that they have. And that is why we have worked really hard to make sure that they are receiving step increases. And Dr. Birdsong has crafted a plan with her administration so that those teachers who were in a compressed sort of salary scale, that compression will then be able to even itself out over the next few years. And it's difficult because you'll ask anybody if we could pay our teachers, $100,000 for what they do, would we say yes? Absolutely. The,
Absolutely.
the the issue is that we have a budget. We have a certain amount of dollars that we get from the state. We have a certain amount of dollars that we get from the federal government. We have a small amount of dollars that we get from our locality. And how do you keep that budget balanced year after year and still provide all of the resources that we need? Transportation, nutrition, mental health resources, school maintenance. How do you do all of that and still be able to pay our teachers who are educating our students a fair amount? And it's very difficult. And we have some very crucial conversations about this. And I do believe that we have tried to make the best of our situation. And for our staff who are working so hard, this is going to be a very a good positive first step in the right direction to address that. And we appreciate all that they do. Truly, as a parent and as a former student within the school division, I know that teachers can inspire and they can make a huge difference, and we appreciate them.
Definitely. And I know that we have a new budget year. We're continuing on with conversations. We had our teachers are getting bonuses. We're working on the compression. But I think at the heart of it, really, and I know that Dr. Birdsong is also looking at that, is also looking at the fact that we've got to look at how do we become competitive. Yeah, we're addressing it, but how can we look at the budget, work with our funding partners to be able to move all salaries up
Hmm.
so that we can be competitive with our surrounding districts, so forth. But I also want to raise the because there's some misnomers out there, and I just want to kind of address this particularly when it comes to the budget and about compression. We received federal dollars from ESSER. We got ARPA funds. We got a lot of one-time funding. And what the community and individuals have to understand is that we can't use one-time funding to solve long-term problems. Long And I'll tell you. So in other words, we're using a lot of that funding now to take care of some capital improvement things to be able to, because we don't get funding from the state to be able to do that. And we could get into a whole discussion about SOQ funding and all these things, but there is a win for Norfolk because in our legislative agenda, we did get the General Assembly to agree to look at a JLARC study. And that means that they're going to look at how they fund public education. Public education, we when we say the state say they fully fund public education or they only support some teachers. So that cafeteria worker, that specialist, that guidance counselor, that social worker are not funded by state funds. And so when we look at, and you look at the budget that we passed and the amendments that we passed, and we dealt with the compression, we dealt with it in a way that we could maintain it, that we would not put ourselves in a fiscal position where we would have to come back next year and potentially not have that funding and be in a position where we have to lay off folks.
Right.
Um, I know I have said it several times. I know, Dr. Gabriel, we've pushed the administration to go back and find additional dollars, cut additional things, and they did. We moved from a 4-year plan to a 3-year plan. And those individuals who were experiencing and have been experiencing compression the longest were getting the largest number of actual steps and a raise. But I got to also say that we have been on this board since I know I've been here since 2018.
Mhm.
And every year we have given a pay raise and a step increase. And then we're adding on top of that. So I know that everybody can't be happy about it, and everyone won't be happy about it. But the board and this administration are working in a direction to solve this, so that we can be in a better position. But I just wanted to kind of highlight that we are really, really doing that, and we can't do that with one-time funding.
Right.
We did take some one-time funding to support the actual bonuses, because again, as I mentioned about SOQ funding, when the state says they're going to give teachers a bonus, they're only giving certain teachers a bonus, and so we can't have that unfairness in that respect, that certain teachers get a bonus from the state, so then that falls back on the locality, and we actually have to find the additional dollars to match that. And so, so when you see that's what that really is. And I don't know, did I explain that all right, Dr. Gabriel?
I think you did, and I'll just put it real plain. I'm not going to be irresponsible with our funds because I
Pretty
have
much.
lived through being on the board in a year where we did have to lay off teachers. And that was the actual year that I voted against the budget because I was very adamant about losing our math specialist, our reading specialist, our PE assistants, some of our gifted instructors. They found employment in other localities, and I do not want to see us in that position again. And so while I would love to be able to deal with the compression in 1 year, that's not fiscally responsible at this time. 80% of our budget is is within the staff that we employ. So there's very little wiggle room. Uh, Someone could say, "Oh, well, cut this program or cut that program." Okay, well, if we're going to do that, do you want to go without our social workers? Do you want to go without our PE teachers? Do you want to go without our cafeteria monitors? What do you want to cut in order for this to happen? And it's difficult. It's difficult when we offer so many services that really try to look at the whole child so that way they can perform academically and that they're ready when they graduate, not just to be scholars, but to be prepared citizens. And so I would say that in looking at all of these items, this is probably the best solution that we can come up with that's fair, that's equitable, and that's truly listening to the voices of our teachers, who we very much respect. And again, like you said, Carlos, it's not the the dream answer that we want, but it's a step in the right direction.
Mhm.
And it's the responsible step in the right direction.
Definitely. So I've got two questions here, and I think Ms. Miller's been on one of my lives before, but she's asking, you're looking at the teachers who were compressed, but are you looking at teachers who were placed on a lower step? And so we're looking at the entire thing. I mean, I think I raised that question in the respect that we had teachers who, new teachers that were coming in, whether or not they were being placed on the right step, were they essentially being compressed again because we didn't want the competition to be with those who hadn't. So I know that they're looking at all. I know that by the end of 2025, and I've asked that question, will we be on a true 30-year step to step? And yes, and that's where we're going. And also, as I'm not at liberty to say it right now, but in the next few months here, you will hear about a plan that will move everyone in some direction and be able to effective in a positive way. So I would just say, hang in there. We are working. We're trying to figure out, as has been mentioned, we get a budget. We're non-revenue generating body, which means that in certain states School boards have the authority to levy taxes. We don't have that. We are in a Dillon rule state here in the Commonwealth of Virginia. So, there's restrictions and things that are placed on us from the General Assembly to the Department of Education. And that flows all the way down to the local government as far as the taxpayer dollars that we're getting. I also want to highlight, Ms. Miller again has a question. When you talk about bonuses, teachers were hired between August and September were given $5,000 bonuses. This year, the legislature gave a $1,000 bonus to SOQ positions. The school board is giving a bonus too. So I just want to clarify, I do not believe that Norfolk Public Schools was giving out $5,000 bonuses. I know that several surrounding schools, I think even what I've seen on social, and I'll post it out there again, was $2,500. And that's one-time funding. I don't know, Ms. Miller, when you came into our school, if you were given a bonus or how long you've been here. So I can't qualify that. But what I will say is that we are in a very tough situation and we're having to compete. And I know that there's some creative things, and I'm going to share that with our superintendent, even, with the teacher shortages that we do have in certain areas, the possibility of being able to give additional stipends or a bonus on top of teachers who take on additional classes. We're constantly looking at ways that we can do this, and somebody's going to feel left out. If you've been here 10 years, and then we're trying to bring teachers in, but we're working on the other end to deal with compression, to get you on the correct step, and also to deal with the salary. So all I can say is that please hang in there with us. We are truly trying to make progress, and that's that we're not a board that's not taking action. We are taking action each year to address that problem and to hopefully get to a resolution sooner than later.
And this past budget has been the most substantial action that has been taken with regards to the steps in
Yes,
many years.
many
So
years.
it's not just action, it's substantial action.
Yeah. Thank you. So look, it's 8:21. We talked about a lot of different stuff here today, and I appreciate it. And I thank you and everybody, Ms. Miller, everybody for here. That's what we want. We want you to ask us questions so we can address them. This is one of the ways that we have engagement with the community. But Dr. Gabriel, myself, all the members, you can call us. I know that my school board cell phone number is available. We have our emails that are out there. We actually have an online tool so that you can send it. We do respond back. We spend a lot of time. All of us have professions, but we are on the school board. I know myself, I can speak for myself, and I know Dr. Gabriel, because we have a passion. We have a passion for our kids, our scholars, our students, to ensure that they have the opportunities that we were so blessed to have when we came through Norfolk Public Schools back in the 90s. And we know that we have great and awesome teachers and a lot of things that are changing here today. But we thank you. We thank you for the opportunity to be able to exchange and for this next school year that's coming up. Hey, Tish. Thank you, and thank you all for supporting. So, Dr. Gabriel, any final words that you got?
Sure. I just want to welcome everyone back to the school year this fall. Make sure that if you are a parent, you are starting to get your kids back to a normal bedtime, because the mornings are going to come fast, and we don't want cranky scholars getting on the buses or walking to school. Go ahead and start thinking about the supplies that they're going to need. Think about the ways that you can help your school succeed, because we are each in this together. And I know that not only am I on the school board, but I am also a PTA member, and so is my husband. And I try to get my neighbors, even if they do not have children in the school system or if they're grandparents, there's always a way that they can help, whether it be helping with new plants in the flower garden, or maybe coming to be a reading buddy with one of the students. So think about the ways that you can help participate in the growing success of Norfolk Public Schools. We want to hear your thoughts. It's very easy to sign up and volunteer. We have a very safe volunteer system that costs you nothing. Full background checks are being implemented. And so it will take a little bit of time to make sure that you are appropriately vetted and safe to come into the building. But again, it's going to take all of us in order to really get our students back on track pre-COVID. But it's not just pre-COVID that we want. We want to see them reaching beyond our wildest dreams and expectations. We want them to be high achieving. I've always said we want to be the envy of the 757. And so, with that said, I wish everyone, including teachers and parents and students, a very enjoyable last couple of days, weeks before school starts. And I can't wait to see all of their smiling faces in the buildings
Definitely. If I'm not mistaken, I think our teachers are returning back tomorrow.
soon.
Um, Yeah, so welcome back to all of our returning staff members and welcome to all of those new members. I've been watching Blair Middle School's been posting up all their new teacher team members that are coming in. We wish everyone much success this school year. We look forward to being there on the first day, supporting everybody. It's going to be a great time. Truly, as we said there, hashtag we're in this together. And I've also added the website if you want to go and sign up to be a volunteer. Everybody enjoy the rest of your Sunday, and we'll be around. Thanks so much, Dr. Gabriel.
Have a good evening.
All right.